Basically, facilitated communication is anytime somebody physically touches another person to try to help them communicate in a nonverbal method. So it's not used, as far as I know, you would never use it on somebody who didn't have some type of learning disability, because that person would be able to just communicate like most people do. But what happens is when you have children or adults with learning disabilities, this theory comes in with facilitated communication, that inside them is a person that is more intelligent and more communicative than they are able to express because of basically motor control limitations. And the theory is that that person, so it's typically people that you would call nonverbal, and that person can't type because they can't control their arm well enough. But if you provide some assistance by guiding their arm when they type or holding them on the shoulder, that helps them feel more comfortable and it helps guide their movements so they can communicate. Now, I think it's wise to remember it takes somewhat of a charitable view. I mean, if you step back and you think about people who engage in facilitated communication, it's not a career I think anybody goes into to get super wealthy. Nobody goes, I want to have a Lamborghini. I'm going into facilitated communication. They go into it because they care about people with learning disabilities. So these are good people that they're smart people. Like, it's not like they're trying to do evil. But what happens is, and this is how this whole thing started, it looks for all the world like it's real. So when Rosemary Crossley introduced this, all of a sudden these children who couldn't communicate very well can communicate really well. And it's based on the ideomotor effect. So here's the whole problem in a nutshell. To an outsider that's not a psychologist, and you watch this, it looks for all the world like facilitated communication is working. And it's just hard to believe that a facilitator truly could control somebody else's movements and not know. It's the same thing that makes a Ouija board work, right? That you all have your fingers on the glass, and I just watched American Horror Story, so I don't recommend doing this. It's just too scary for me now. But you don't know that you're moving the glass, and so it feels for all the world like it's real. Well, here's the problem. So facilitated communication booms in Australia. Douglas Bicklin goes down he leaves Syracuse University, he visits, he loves it, he brings it to the United States, and now it's all over. The problem is, or I shouldn't call it a problem, but, well, the problem for facilitated communication promoters is you can actually test it. So here's the theory. Inside this person is hidden intelligence. When I grab their arm and I guide it around, they can communicate more successfully. See, when I help them move the hand around the keyboard, they suddenly write poetry and tell me that they love me and they love their mom. Here's the problem. You can test it. All you do is go, okay, we're going to tell the person who uses FC, facilitated communication, something, and we're not going to let you see it. And then all of a sudden, facilitated communication quits working. And it's all demonstrated beautifully in the documentary Prisoners of Silence on Frontline. And you watch it, and you go, wow, well, look, everybody thought that worked. It's clearly not working. And I think many people who watch that documentary students watch it, they get to the end, and they go, oh, well, that was a neat chapter in our history of working with people that have learning disabilities. But it never stopped. Like, you watch it in the video, and you go, yeah, that doesn't work. It's over. But it never stopped because it's difficult to prove. The believers can always believe that it must work for person A and person B and person C. But nobody's ever been able to demonstrate that it actually works. So this is why I would call FC pseudoscience, and I have. There's just no evidence that it works. And there are dozens of, is that an exaggeration? Probably not. But there are several studies that show that people that they thought could do FC can't do it. So where are we as a science? Until somebody can show the pair of the facilitator and pair that can do it, why would we believe it? But it's still, it's everywhere. I mean, like you're saying, people pay money to go to these workshops, and it just goes on and on and on. You can't stop it. I mean, we try, but it's difficult to.
It has produced false abuse allegations, and these continue to the present day, right? It's still going on.
Yeah, there are. So, I mean, we point to those because, I mean, let's start with research methods, right? This is the value of research methods. I mean, it's so tempting for people to, once they get the results, especially in a social science like psychology, it is so easy for them to go, well, that's obvious. Well, yeah, it's obvious when you see the results. For people that have completed dissertations and done other research, you learn that it's not always obvious, right? And FC provides a nice example of that. Without the research methods, nobody would have ever known. And it went on for years before different researchers said, well, why don't we just put a screen between the user, so you can imagine the user over here. I shouldn't say user because they're not actually using the partner and the facilitator. And when you put that screen between them, it quits working. And so you look at FC, it's research methods that solve that. But like you said, it's hard to stop. So when you make these arguments to try to wake people up to the dangers of FC, it is easy to point to some of the more dramatic events and there are several, where a facilitator reported sexual abuse and a dad ends up jailed for like 80 days. I believe that's accurate. And of course, it's exceptionally painful, and there's no evidence for this. There are other people. There's a couple of stories of people who thought they had consent for sexual contact, and so then, I mean, it's hard to talk about. But somebody with a learning disability is then being assaulted, basically, because the person believes that they have some sort of relationship that I think logic would tell us isn't there. And there's also a murder case. There was a mercy killing that is tied into this, where there was some FC used on a BlackBerry, a cell phone, of years past. And yeah, but even if you take those cases out,
yeah, what's
you still go the money, and it's unfortunate. I mean, you don't want to take away somebody who thinks that their child all of a sudden could tell them that they love them. But if they're not aware of who their child really is, then they're going to be pushing that child into learning programs that aren't suitable for them. And so that's one danger. And the other danger, and I'm glad I can get this out, is there's an irony in this, which is, why do you need these children to be not learning disabled? Like, I get it. I mean, we all want people to be as able as they possibly can be, but can we not respect them for who they are? Like, why do we need that? I mean, I get it. I mean, if it were my child and I thought the child was communicating more effectively, it would be hard to let that go. I totally get it. But it's just interesting, the layers and layers that go on with facilitating.
Right. It does demean the learning disability to sort of pretend it doesn't exist, or that the person would be unacceptable if they really were incapable.